We'll start with you, Parf, if we can. While Sport has a long chat with JT. Parf, one of the things I read on the internet, it said you could stop a taxi several streets away with your voice. You're a loss on the after-dinner circuit. You packed it up, but you obviously told some great stories about Dennis Compton, among others. Would you say he was the greatest player you ever played with? Can you hear me? It is, Parf. Yeah? You asked me to make this easy for you. I mean, if you want me to continue in that vein, perhaps you cooperate.
Well, I did play with him, I don't know how many times, not many times, but certainly I first played with him when I was 18. And we played Somerset at Glastonbury, and when I walked to the crease, he'd not been in very long, and he was 7 not out. An hour and a quarter later, he was 114 and I was 6. And I can always remember, because I had been really sort of helped by other team players who had said, Parf, whatever you do, he said, just be careful of Dennis. He said, because if you think he's a bad runner, he said, you've not seen anything like this. And I'll just go off at a tangent for talking about him as a bad runner against somebody like Boycott. Dennis was batting here at Lord's in his brother's benefit match, which was the great Leslie Compton, centre-half for Arsenal, wicket-keeper for Middlesex. 20,000 people in the ground, Saturday of the Sussex Whitsuntide game, and Dennis, it was always accepted in those days that you got one off the mark if you were the beneficiary. What happened? Dennis ran his brother out for naught. And I can always remember having, sort of several years later, I'm batting with him at Glastonbury and he's 97 not out. Colin McCool is bowling, and Colin McCool bowls and Dennis plays forward. He bowls again, Dennis plays forward. And I'm halfway down the wicket because I didn't want to be run out. Right. 4th ball, I'm down the wicket. Dennis comes down the wicket. He says to me, will you stand still, he said. He said, I'll hit him through there in a minute. Which he did. Great player.
John, I mentioned your century against the West Indies, and thank you for the fiver you slipped me to mention that. Was that the greatest innings in your career, as far as you were concerned? So you got plenty of other centuries for Middlesex.
You have to say yes, don't you? You have to say yes, don't you? I think there were. We won't go into that. I think there were probably a couple of innings.
Yeah.
Better.
Well, I wish we would go into it, because that's what we're here for. I mean, you haven't paid for your lunch. I mean, I wouldn't. So what were your next...
I've got you on my right hand, and I don't hear too well in the right hand.
Oh, okay.
I'm not too sure what you said then. So I'll ignore that.
Yeah.
If you get 100 in a test match, it has to be better than anything else.
And could you tell us what was perhaps in your, leaving aside the test matches, what was your greatest game in your memory for Middlesex in your career?
Oh dear, I don't know. You've got all the facts and figures there, Bob. How many games did I play? I can't remember which was the best game I ever played. We had a little bit of success.
Yep.
Not as much as I would have hoped, because I came here in 1950 onto the ground staff here. I arrived April the 4th, I think it was, through the North Gate where we all came today. I was met by a man called Leslie Syme, who was the ground superintendent or something, with a chap called Brian Hall, who you might even know. We were given a broom each, and I swept what was then called the H&I stand and the whatever the next one was, which are now Compton and Edrich. And my first task here was sweep the Compton and Edrich stands. And then I retired in 1975, and we hadn't won a bloody thing. And Titmus, under Michael, they win the championship in 1976, and Titmus said, "I now know what's been wrong with Middlesex." But they were the best years of my life, without any doubt. We didn't make any money. That wasn't important. I woke up every morning with a desire to go to my place of work, and that continued right through. And I'd live it all again without even being right.
Sounds to me like every game you played was the greatest game of your life. So that's lovely. Sport. You stood at the behind the stumps and on the field, Lord's Taverners games, having the great pleasure of watching me bowl and occasionally bat. And we've always called you Sport, and I've never known why. Where does the name come from?
I don't really know sport. And I tell you, the reason JT was happy to go to Lord's every morning was because I used to give him a lift. But no, sport, I'm not the greatest on names, and so instead of trying to remember names, just called everybody Sport. Everybody seemed quite happy with that. Taxi drivers, waiters, the lot. So that was it, Sport.
Right. Well, I was hoping it'd be more interesting. Got another 10 minutes to fill yet, that's the worry. Sport, you play, I've lost the plot here. You played 15 tests for England. What was your most memorable test playing for England?
The most memorable, I think, is always going to be your first one. And I'll try and keep it down to half an hour. We're in India, 1964. I've been selected to go on the tour at the end of my first full season at Middlesex. I hadn't got my Middlesex cap at that stage. But I go off on tour, and I'm given every chance to get into the test team, but basically I bowled badly without luck. And I don't get selected for the first test. And we get into the second test at Bombay, and to cut a very long story short, the night before the test is due to start, there are only 12 of us fit. Kenny Battler's 15 on the tour. Kenny Barrington's broken a finger in the previous game, dropping a slip catch off me. Two of the others are in the local hospital with tummy trouble. And if you've got stomach trouble in Bombay, you've got stomach trouble. I come down to breakfast next morning. The night before it's announced, the team's announced there's 12 of us fit and I'm 12th man. I come down to breakfast next morning, have a quick count. There's only 10 others there. I think I'm in with a bit of a shout here. I better go to nets this morning. And that's the only reason I played my first test match. There were only 11 of us fit, so I had to play. The selectors were quite reluctant about it. But, they tried one or two others. They tried the manager. But his last game had been for Parents Against the Sons 7 years before, and he'd been dropped twice, making 8. And they did try Henry Blofeld. He was on the trip, press man, so they phoned his hotel, but sadly, Henry had stomach trouble. So I played, and it's one of my cricket questions actually. Amazingly, all 4 seamers were fit for this game, and whereas I would normally expect to be sort of fairly early in the pecking order in bowling, I was the number 4 bowler, second change, and cricket question is who were the 3 seamers who bowled before me, but so that was my first test match, batted at number 8, because by then we were down to 10. Mickey Stewart disappeared to hospital. And we played from tea time on the first day. We played the rest of the test match with 10 men. And I batted at number 8. And I batted for 2 hours and 20 minutes. With Mr. Titmus. And 32, top test score.
Well, we played or been on tours with the Taverners all over the world, Los Angeles, Hong Kong, Kenya. Wherever we've been in the world, you've always come down for a full English. And it's interesting to hear that in India, even with the shits, you come down for breakfast. So well-deserved first cap, I think. Sport, just finally enlighten us on who you got 53 not out against.
West Indies.
I'm sorry I asked. JT, you've told us what Middlesex means to you, obviously everything. If you could pick one player to play with one more time, who would that player be?
Compton.
Have to be Compton. Yeah, right. Oh! I think he's just come from above.
It was.
You dropped something behind you, JT, in case you did. It's just fallen down. Never mind, not the first thing you dropped. Right.
They were unbelievable. Compton Edrich, I hear all what Gus does now, and long before Gus even, as to how they prepare for their season, and it's wonderful. Compton Edrich, my years were, you never ever had a team meeting. There was never a conversation about how we might win the championship. That just didn't happen. There were only really 2 games in their careers. That was Surrey Yorkshire. That interested them. Leicestershire at Ashby-on-Azouch on a Wednesday was not where they wanted to be. You know, and you can understand, if you think about Bill Edrich, who had a wonderful war record. He flew these low-flying Lancasters and got a DFC, and all of a sudden the war is over, and they're pinching themselves. They're still alive, and they are on a boat going to Australia, 1946, to play cricket, along with 1,500 war brides. We didn't regain the Ashes. But I learned, it was drummed into us, and probably we didn't quite get it right, that you've got to entertain, and they were both entertainers. And I tried in my poor way, without a lot of success, but they were the two people I would always want to play cricket with, yeah.
And just finally, Parf, tell us what Middlesex means to you.
Well,
with a mic, I do.
All I can say is that I'm a country lad up from Norfolk, which is where Bill Edrich came from, and I played for Norfolk as a schoolboy, and of course there were the inevitable letters in about joining first-class counties. My dear old father, who idolised Compton and Edrich, he said, if you're going to go anywhere, old boy, you're going to go to Middlesex. And that is as I played the game. And in 1972, I came to the end of my contract here, and Derbyshire wanted me to go there. Essex wanted me to go there. Doug Ensole asked me if I had any chance of me going and taking over from Brian Taylor at Essex for a couple of years before Keith Fletcher came along. And I just couldn't bring myself to play for any other county but this one.
And totally finally, sport. Your first game for Middlesex, what does it mean to you?
Yes, I mean, it's a bit like my Test match debut, actually, sort of fairly unexpected. I was playing club cricket at Wembley, and in 1960, I got asked to play in the Middlesex second 11 game here at Lord's against Surrey, a three-day game. We just had, the second 11 had one match out on the centre there, and I played in that. And then next year, the 1961, I was due to play another second 11 game down at Hove, Whitsun Bank Holiday. And on the Friday, the day before the game started, I got a phone call in the office where I was working. Don Bennett's injured. Would you like to play in the first team? And so I played in that game, Whitsun Bank Holiday, 61. The ropes were down on the ground and the crowd was sitting on the grass behind the ropes. Made my I had played at Lord's a couple of times before, but obviously my first class debut. Mossy charging down the hill, and I was sort of trundled up it, and but had a bit of success. Neil Lennon was my first victim in first class cricket. Managed to knock his poles out after 7 balls, and I mean, what better Middlesex debut could you make than Whitsun Bank Holiday against Sussex at Lord's in front of a good crowd?
Well, John Murray said about Compton and Edridge entertaining. These three guys have certainly entertained us today, and Gus is going to come and present them with the Middlesex Cat. So while he does that, would you thank Peter Parfitt, J.T. Murray and John Price?
Actually, I want to get the club president, Clive Radley, to come up and present them. So, gents, thanks for everything you've done for the club and you continue to do for the club, and thanks for entertaining us this afternoon. There you go, Red. JT.
Well done, chaps. John Murray, Peter Parfitt and John Price. How about it?